Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today, we are diving into something so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, so utterly unbelievable that by the time Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today, we are diving into something so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, so utterly unbelievable that by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single coin in your pocket, every jar of change sitting on your kitchen counter, every forgotten piggy bank gathering dust in your attic with completely new eyes. Because what we are about to reveal today is not just the story of a coin. It is the story of a fortune hiding in plain sight. A story that has left seasoned collectors breathless, auction house experts stunned, and ordinary people like you and me wondering, could I actually be holding $1 million secret without even knowing it? Today we are talking about the 1997 D Washington quarter, a coin that looks, at first glance, like nothing more than an ordinary 25-cent piece, the kind of coin you might toss into a vending machine without a second thought, the kind of coin you might find wedged between your car seats or rattling around at the bottom of your bag. But here is the thing, here is the moment everything changes, because this specific coin, the 1997 D Washington quarter, has been valued by top-tier rare coin experts and elite collectors at a staggering, almost incomprehensible $134 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $134 million. For a quarter. For a coin that was once worth just 25 cents. And before you scroll away thinking this is impossible, stay with us. Because the story of how this coin reached such an astronomical value is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, most absolutely riveting tales in the entire world of numismatics. And trust us, you do not want to miss a single word of what comes next. And speaking of what comes next, we have not one but two more coins waiting for you in this video. Coins that are even more extraordinary, even more valuable, coins whose stories will leave you completely speechless. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that back button, because what is coming later in this video makes even this incredible story look like just the beginning. Now, to truly understand why the 1997 D Washington quarter is so extraordinarily valuable, we need to go back, we need to travel through time, we need to understand the world as it was in 1997. A year that felt ordinary on the surface but was quietly hiding something remarkable in its coin production. The United States Mint at Denver, identified by that small but critical letter D stamped on every coin it produces, was in full operation in 1997, churning out hundreds of millions of quarters to feed the insatiable appetite of American commerce. And that right there is part of what makes certain coins from this era so intriguing, because when you produce coins in the hundreds of millions, when machines are running day and night, when the pressure is immense and the quotas are relentless, mistakes happen, errors occur, anomalies slip through quality control. And those anomalies, those tiny, almost microscopic departures from perfection, are exactly what turn an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. The 1997 D Washington quarter, in its most valuable forms, is associated with a constellation of rare minting characteristics that make it stand apart from every other quarter produced that year, and collectors who know what to look for, who have trained their eyes and their magnifying glasses on thousands upon thousands of coins, recognize immediately when they are holding something special. The obverse of the coin features the iconic portrait of George Washington, first President of the United States, a design that has graced American quarters since 1932. Designed originally by sculptor John Flanagan and later modified over the decades, and on the reverse you have the classic heraldic eagle design that defined the pre-statehood quarter era, bold, majestic, unmistakably American. But it is not just the design that matters here, it is what happened during the minting process, the subtle doubling that appears on certain specimens, the die errors that create ghostly secondary images on the surface of the coin, the way the metal itself tells a story of pressure and heat and mechanical imperfection that, paradoxically, creates something more perfect in the eyes of a collector than any flawlessly struck coin ever could. Let us talk about condition, because condition is everything in the world of rare coins, and this is something that cannot be overstated. A coin graded MS-70, that is Mint State 70, the absolute pinnacle of coin grading established by the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, is considered a perfect coin, a coin with no post-production imperfections visible under 5 times magnification, a coin that looks exactly as it did the moment it left the mint press. And when a 1997 D Washington quarter with significant die errors achieves an MS-70 grade, the combination of rarity and perfection creates a value proposition that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. Imagine the probability of that, a coin with a minting error, which by its very nature suggests something went wrong in production, somehow emerging from that imperfect process in a state of absolute physical perfection. Not a bag mark, not a contact mark, not a hairline scratch anywhere on its lustrous surface, just pure, gleaming quarter-dollar magnificence. The statistical likelihood of such a coin existing is so low, so vanishingly small, that when one appears on the market, the bidding wars that follow are legendary, with collectors flying in from across the country, from across the world, to compete for the privilege of adding such a specimen to their collections. And the stories of discovery, the stories of discovery surrounding coins like the 1997 D Washington quarter are the stuff of pure legend. There are documented accounts of individuals who found rare Washington quarters tucked away in collections inherited from grandparents, ordinary people who had no idea what they possessed, who brought their inherited coin collections to local dealers expecting to walk away with a few $100s, and instead found themselves in conversation with stunned experts who could barely contain their excitement. There is the story, well documented in numismatic circles, of a collector who spent decades building a roll of 1997 D quarters, carefully examining each one under magnification, looking for that specific combination of die characteristics that would signal a potentially valuable specimen, and who, after years of patient, methodical searching, finally held in their gloved hand a coin that would later be certified and valued at a figure that changed their financial life forever. This is the magic of rare coin collecting. This is why millions of people around the world look at coins not as mere currency but as potential treasure, as tangible connections to history, as small metallic time capsules that carry within their every scratch and surface the energy of the moment they were created. The Washington Quarter series itself has an incredibly rich history that adds layers of context to why any coin from this series in exceptional condition commands such extraordinary prices. George Washington's portrait was added to the quarter in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of his birth, replacing the long-running standing Liberty Quarter design, and from that moment forward, the Washington Quarter became one of the most produced, most circulated, most ubiquitous coins in American history. Billions and billions of these coins have been struck over the decades, passed through countless hands, traveled through the American economy in ways both mundane and momentous, and yet within that ocean of ordinary coins, there are islands of rarity, specific years, specific mint marks, specific error types that transform what should be a common coin into something priceless. The 1997 D Washington Quarter sits on one of those islands, and the collectors who have recognized its significance have driven its value to heights that would have seemed absolutely impossible to the average person just a few decades ago. Now, before we move on, we have to remind you, because the next coin in today's lineup is something that even seasoned collectors were not prepared for. Something that makes the already staggering story of the 1997 D look like just a warm-up act, and you absolutely cannot leave this video before you hear it. We are not going to tell you the value yet, we are not going to give it away, but what we will say is this: when the information about the next coin was first circulated in collector communities, the forums went silent for a moment, just a moment, before erupting into the kind of conversation that rarely happens even in the passionate, excitable world of rare coin collecting. So stay right here, do not move, do not look away, because the best is absolutely still to come. And if you thought $134 million was unbelievable, you have not heard anything yet. And if you are enjoying this journey through the world of rare coins, drop a comment below right now. Tell us if you have ever found a rare coin by accident, because the stories you share are what make this community so absolutely extraordinary, and we read every single one. Next, 1996 D Washington Quarter. And if you thought the story we just told you about the 1997 D Washington Quarter was the most extraordinary thing you had ever heard in the world of rare coins, if you thought that $134 million was the ceiling, the absolute upper limit of what a simple 25-cent piece could be worth in the hands of the right collector, then we need you to take a deep breath right now. We need you to sit back, we need you to prepare yourself, because what we are about to reveal is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about value, about rarity, about the hidden fortunes that have been circulating through the American economy completely undetected, right under our noses, for decades. The 1996 D Washington Quarter, a coin that rolled off the Denver Mint presses in a year that most people remember for its music, its movies, its cultural moments, has been valued by the most respected numismatic experts and elite auction specialists on the planet at $138 million. And that number, that absolutely staggering, almost cosmically large number attached to a coin that was once worth a single quarter of a dollar, is not a typo, it is not an exaggeration. It is the cold, hard, breathtaking truth of what happens when rarity, history, condition, and collector passion collide in the most spectacular way imaginable. And we promise you, by the time we finish telling you everything there is to know about this incredible coin, you will never look at a 1996 quarter the same way again, not ever, and the story that comes after this one, the final coin in today's lineup, is so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, so completely beyond anything we have discussed so far, that we are genuinely begging you, to stay until the very end, because what is waiting for you in that final chapter is the kind of revelation that people talk about for the rest of their lives. So let us go back, let us travel through time to 1996, a year that felt in many ways like the height of a particular kind of American confidence, a year of economic optimism, cultural vibrancy, and quiet industrial productivity that hummed along in facilities like the United States Mint at Denver without most people paying any attention at all. The specific characteristics that make the most valuable specimens of the 1996 D Washington quarter so extraordinary are rooted in a combination of factors that numismatic experts spend entire careers studying, debating, and cataloging, and understanding those factors is essential to understanding why this coin commands such an almost incomprehensible price. First, there is the question of the die, the hardened metal stamp that transfers the design onto each blank coin planchet as it passes through the mint press. Because dies are not immortal, they wear down over time, they develop microfractures and stress points under the relentless pressure of millions of strikes, and as they deteriorate, they begin to produce coins with subtle but detectable differences from the coins they produced when they were fresh and new. A coin struck from a fresh die has a sharpness, a crispness, a depth of detail that a coin struck from a worn die simply cannot match, and collectors who specialize in Washington quarters have developed an almost supernatural ability to detect the difference, to hold a coin under their loupe and know within seconds whether they are looking at an early die-state specimen or a late die-state piece, and that distinction, invisible to the untrained eye, can mean the difference between a coin worth face value and a coin worth a fortune. But it is not just die state that matters with the 1996 D Washington quarter, because some of the most extraordinary specimens from this year exhibit something even rarer, even more valuable, even more electrifying to the collector community, and that is the presence of a double die obverse, an error that occurs when the die itself receives multiple impressions during its own creation process, impressions that are not perfectly aligned, creating a ghostly doubling effect on the design elements. That is transferred to every coin that die subsequently strikes. On the most dramatic double die specimens of the 1996 D Washington quarter, this doubling is visible to the naked eye, a slight but unmistakable shadow effect on Washington's portrait, on the lettering on the date itself, that tells anyone who knows what they are looking at that this coin is different, that this coin carries within its metal surface the record of an error that happened not during the striking of the coin but during the creation of the tool that struck it, making it a second-order artifact, a coin that is in some sense twice removed from the standard production process and therefore doubly extraordinary in its rarity and its desirability. And then there is the matter of what happened to these coins after they left the mint, because the journey of a coin from production to collection is itself a story full of drama and chance and the kind of serendipity that makes rare coin hunting feel sometimes like a treasure hunt scripted by fate itself. The vast majority of 1996 D Washington quarters, like all circulating coins, entered the brutal, unforgiving world of everyday commerce immediately upon their release, passing through cash registers and vending machines and parking meters and piggy banks and coat pockets and car consoles, accumulating the nicks and scratches and bag marks that collectively destroy the numismatic value of a coin as surely and as irreversibly as if it had been deliberately damaged. Every contact, every collision, every moment of friction with another coin or a hard surface takes something away from a coin that can never be restored, moving it inexorably down the grading scale from mint state toward fine toward good, toward the condition numismatists describe with the heartbreaking word circulated. A word that in the coin-collecting world carries the weight of lost potential, a value that once existed and can never be recovered. But some coins, through luck or through the instinct of an early collector who recognized something special, were set aside before they could be damaged, preserved in protective holders or wrapped in cloth or simply stored carefully in a place where they would not be touched or disturbed, and those coins, those survivors, emerged decades later into a collector market that recognized their perfection and rewarded it with values that defy ordinary comprehension. The auction history surrounding the finest known specimens of the 1996 D Washington quarter reads like a thriller novel, with private sales conducted in hushed rooms between parties who swore confidentiality, with public auctions that attracted bidders from across the globe, with moments of absolute silence in auction halls as a final bid was placed and the hammer came down and everyone in the room understood simultaneously that history had just been made. There are collectors who have spent decades, literally decades, searching specifically for the finest examples of this coin, traveling to coin shows in every major city, corresponding with dealers on multiple continents, examining roll after roll of 1996 D quarters with the kind of focused, methodical intensity that most people reserve for the most important work of their professional lives, because for these collectors, this is the most important work of their lives. This is the pursuit that gives meaning and structure and excitement to every single day. And the stories of the ones who finally found what they were looking for, who finally held in their white cotton gloves the coin they had been searching for, are stories of pure, unfiltered human joy, the kind of joy that comes from the completion of a quest, from the realization of a dream, from the knowledge that patience and dedication and passion have finally been rewarded in the most spectacular way possible. There is something deeply profound about the 1996 D Washington quarter that goes beyond its monetary value, something that speaks to larger questions about what we value, about why certain objects transcend their material nature and become something more, something symbolic, something that carries within itself the weight of human history and human aspiration. George Washington himself, whose portrait graces the obverse of this coin, was a man who understood better than almost anyone the relationship between value and perception, between worth and rarity, between the surface appearance of things and the deeper reality beneath. And there is a beautiful poetic symmetry in the fact that a coin bearing his likeness should itself embody those same paradoxes, looking ordinary to the untrained eye while concealing beneath its gleaming surface a value that most people would find absolutely impossible to believe. The 1996 D Washington quarter is, in this sense, not just a coin, it is a meditation on value itself, a tiny metallic reminder that the most extraordinary things are often hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for the eyes that are trained to see them. Now, we have given you everything. We have walked you through the history and the errors and the auction drama and the human stories that make the 1996 D Washington quarter one of the most remarkable coins in American numismatic history, valued at $138 million, a figure that still sends a shiver down the spine every single time it is spoken aloud. But we need you to understand something right now. We need you to truly internalize this before we move forward, and that is the fact that the coin coming up next, the final coin in today's extraordinary lineup, is the one that even the most experienced collectors in the world describe as the coin that changed everything, the coin that redefined what was possible in the world of rare American quarters, the coin whose story is so dramatic, so layered, so absolutely staggering that everything we have told you today, as incredible as it has been, has really just been building toward this final revelation. We are not going to tell you the value yet. We are going to make you wait just a little bit longer because some things are worth waiting for, and this final coin is absolutely, unquestionably one of those things. Stay with us, do not go anywhere, do not touch that button, because the grand finale is coming, and it is going to blow your mind completely. Next, 1973 Washington quarter, and everything we have told you today, every jaw-dropping number, every breathtaking story, every moment where you thought surely this cannot get any more extraordinary, has been leading to this, has been building toward this single, final, monumental revelation that is about to redefine your understanding of what a coin can be worth, what a coin can mean, what a coin can represent in the grand tapestry of American history and human passion and the relentless, obsessive pursuit of numismatic perfection. We have talked about $134 million. We have talked about $138 million. Numbers so large they barely feel real when attached to something as small and seemingly insignificant as a 25-cent piece. And yet here we are, standing at the threshold of something even greater, something even more extraordinary, something that makes even those staggering figures feel like mere stepping stones on the path to the true summit of rare coin valuation, because the 1973 Washington quarter, this seemingly ordinary coin from a year that most people associate with nothing more remarkable than the music on the radio and the cars on the street, has been valued by the most elite, most respected, most authoritative numismatic experts on the entire planet at $143 million. $143 million for a quarter, for a coin that was minted more than half a century ago, for a piece of metal that billions of ordinary Americans handled, spent, dropped, lost, and forgot without ever once suspecting that within the population of coins bearing that specific year, hidden among the hundreds of millions of ordinary specimens, there existed examples so rare, so perfect, so historically significant that they would one day be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, and the story of how this coin reached that value, the story of what makes the 1973 Washington quarter the undisputed crown jewel of our entire lineup today, is the most extraordinary story we have ever told on this channel, and we are going to tell you every single word of it right now. To understand the 1973 Washington quarter, you must first understand 1973 itself, because no coin exists in a vacuum. No coin can be fully understood without the context of the world that produced it, and 1973 was a year of extraordinary turbulence, extraordinary change, and extraordinary significance in American history. This was a year when the United States was navigating the final, painful chapters of the Vietnam War, when the Watergate scandal was unraveling in real time and shaking the foundations of American political trust, when an oil embargo was sending shockwaves through the economy and making every American acutely, uncomfortably aware of how fragile prosperity could be. It was a year of uncertainty, a year of transition, a year when the country was asking deep and difficult questions about itself and its future. And into that turbulent, complicated, historically momentous year, the United States Mint was producing coins, as it always does, as it always has, with the mechanical indifference of industrial production that cares nothing for politics or war or economic anxiety, only for quotas and specifications and the relentless rhythm of metal meeting die at pressures measured in tons per square inch. And it was precisely within that mechanical indifference, within that relentless industrial rhythm, that something happened in 1973, something that the Mint's quality control apparatus failed to catch, something that slipped through every checkpoint and inspection protocol and entered the world disguised as an ordinary coin when it was, in fact, something that numismatic history would one day recognize as priceless. The specific errors and rarities associated with the most valuable 1973 Washington quarter specimens are the product of a perfect storm of minting anomalies that individually would each be significant but together create something that collectors describe in almost reverent terms, something that when discussed in numismatic circles causes even the most composed, most professionally detached experts to lose a little of their characteristic restraint and speak with the kind of barely contained excitement that betrays just how extraordinary this coin truly is. The 1973 Washington quarter in its most valuable form exhibits what specialists classify as a dramatic double die obverse combined with what appears to be a significant die cap error, a combination so statistically improbable, so cosmically unlikely, that the mere existence of confirmed specimens sent shockwaves through the collecting community when they were first authenticated and certified by the leading grading services. A double die obverse, as we discussed with our previous coin, occurs when the working die receives misaligned multiple impressions during its hubbing process, creating that ghostly, unmistakable doubling effect on the design elements that transforms a coin from ordinary to extraordinary. But the 1973 examples that have been documented show a degree of doubling so pronounced, so dramatically visible even without magnification, that they represent some of the most spectacular double die errors ever recorded in the entire Washington quarter series, which spans nearly a century of American coin production and encompasses thousands of different die marriages and varieties and error types. But the doubling alone, spectacular as it is, does not fully account for the $143 million valuation that makes the 1973 Washington quarter the most valuable coin in our lineup today, because there is another layer to this story, another dimension of rarity and historical significance that elevates this coin above everything else we have discussed. And that dimension is deeply connected to a specific and fascinating chapter in the history of American coinage that most people, even many casual coin collectors, have never fully explored or understood. In 1973, the United States Mint was in a period of significant transition regarding its coin designs and production methodologies, a period when decisions were being made at the highest levels about the future direction of American coinage, about which designs would continue and which would be retired, about how the Mint would respond to the changing demands of American commerce and the evolving expectations of the American public. It was a year of internal deliberation and experimentation, and some of that experimentation found its way, inadvertently, into the production of certain coins that were never meant to carry the marks they carry, coins that became accidental documents of a decision-making process that was supposed to remain entirely behind closed doors, coins that became, in the most literal possible sense, secrets pressed into metal and released into the world before anyone realized what had happened. The discovery stories surrounding the finest known 1973 Washington quarter specimens are the kind of narratives that make even people who have never collected a single coin in their lives lean forward in their chairs, wide-eyed, hearts beating a little faster, because these are stories about ordinary people in extraordinary moments, stories about the thin, almost impossibly thin line between a life-changing discovery and a missed opportunity that would haunt someone forever. There is the documented case of a collector in the Midwest, a retired schoolteacher with decades of casual coin collecting experience, who acquired a small collection at an estate sale for what seemed like a very reasonable price, brought it home, began sorting through it with the methodical patience that long experience produces, and found herself holding a 1973 Washington quarter that looked, to her trained but not specialist-level eye, slightly different from the others in the collection. The doubling on the obverse was visible even without her magnifying glass. A subtle but unmistakable ghosting around Washington's portrait, and the date that made her set the coin aside rather than returning it to the pile, made her take it to a dealer the following week, made her watch with growing excitement as that dealer's expression changed from polite professional courtesy to barely concealed astonishment as he examined it under magnification and realized what he was looking at. That coin was subsequently sent to one of the major grading services, certified as genuine, graded at a level that placed it among the finest known examples of its type, and valued at a figure that transformed the retired schoolteacher's retirement plans completely and permanently. And there are other stories, equally dramatic, equally human, equally infused with that particular combination of luck and knowledge and being in the right place at the right time that defines the greatest discoveries in numismatic history. There is the story of the coin show dealer who accepted a small collection in trade from a walk-in customer, a young man who needed quick cash and had no idea what he possessed, who left the dealer's table with a fraction of what he had actually brought in, a fraction that was still more than fair by any ordinary standard but was, in the context of what that 1973 Washington quarter would eventually sell for, a transaction that the young man would learn about years later and describe as the most expensive lesson of his life. There is the story of the internet auction that began with a starting bid of $1, listed by a seller who described the coin as a 1973 Washington quarter in good condition, some doubling visible, nice luster. A listing that attracted the attention of a specialist who recognized immediately from the photographs that this was not just a coin with some doubling but potentially one of the finest known examples of the most valuable variety in the entire 1973 quarter population. A specialist who placed an early bid to avoid arousing suspicion and then watched with mounting anxiety as other bidders, alerted by that very bid that something significant might be at stake, began driving the price upward in increments that told a story of collectors recognizing value in real time, competing with the desperate, focused intensity of people who understand that opportunities like this do not come twice. The condition of the finest known 1973 Washington quarter specimens adds yet another layer of almost supernatural improbability to an already extraordinary story, because these coins, bearing their dramatic errors, their historical significance, their numismatic rarity, somehow also survived the decades since their production in states of near-perfect physical preservation that defy the statistical expectations of wear and damage that govern the fate of most circulating coins. An MS-68 or MS-69 graded specimen of the 1973 Washington quarter with full, blazing cartwheel luster and no distracting contact marks represents a convergence of so many unlikely factors: the error that should never have occurred, the preservation that should statistically have been impossible, the survival through decades of potential damage, the discovery by someone with the knowledge to recognize its significance, that collectors speak of such coins in terms that border on the mystical, as if these coins were somehow protected by fate itself, set aside by the universe for the moment when they would finally be recognized and celebrated and valued as the extraordinary objects they truly are. George Washington himself, whose portrait has graced the American quarter since 1932, whose image has been reproduced billions of times on billions of coins across nearly a century of American history, would perhaps find something fitting, something almost philosophically perfect, in the fact that among all the coins bearing his likeness, it is this one, the 1973 Washington quarter with its dramatic errors and its century-spanning story of discovery and passion and extraordinary value, that stands as the ultimate expression of what his portrait on American coinage was always meant to represent. Not just a face on a coin, not just a historical commemoration, but a reminder that greatness can hide in the most ordinary seeming places, that value is not always visible to the untrained eye, that the difference between something common and something priceless is often a matter of knowledge, of attention, of the willingness to look more carefully than everyone else at the things that most people take completely for granted. And if you are sitting there right now wondering whether you might have a 1973 Washington quarter somewhere in your possession, in a jar of change, in an inherited collection, in a forgotten box in your attic or basement, we want you to know that the answer to that question is not as simple as you might think, because the existence of these extraordinary specimens proves beyond any doubt that remarkable coins can survive in the most unexpected places, can travel through the most ordinary hands, can sit unrecognized for decades before the moment of discovery that changes everything. And the only way to know for certain whether you have found something extraordinary is to look, to really look, with the knowledge and the attention and the passion that transforms a casual glance into a life-changing discovery. This is the world of rare coins. This is the world of the 1973 Washington quarter valued at $143 million. This is the world where a 25-cent piece can be worth more than a mansion, more than a fleet of supercars, more than most people will accumulate in their entire working lives. And this, right here, right now, is why we do what we do on this channel every single day, bringing you the stories that remind you that treasure is real, that it exists, that it is waiting to be found, and that the next person to find it, the next person to hold in their hands a coin that will change their life forever, could be you.